Good afternoon, happy Savage Saturday. Keepers of the Cash, Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy here, and we are here with Savage Saturday Comic Review, episode 107, and our third part of the Salimba stories. All right, we started out with part one. All right, then part two. And in the middle of part one and part two, we had a big middle section, which we did last week. And this week, we're doing the last part of part two, which is the third story and rounds out the Selena stories as told by Steve Perry and with great art by Paul Chadwick. The art grew on me more and more. I absolutely love the art in this series. I find it very elegant and nice. It's beautiful. It really connects me to the characters. And we're going to get right into it and get to this last story and enjoy it. And there was a lot of history with this. I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to give you guys the stories. But it's worth looking into. And poor Steve Perry had quite the tragic ending, but he left behind some great stuff. And Paul Chadwick, a great gentleman. All right. So as our third story begins, it picks up where last week's episode ended. Salimba had just defeated Lyra, and then she was departing with her cats and the body of Naomi. And so when this story picks up, we have the prologue, and we have Salimba carrying Naomi's body. And she says, "You taught me how to care, Naomi, and I will pay you back. You shall find no rest among our own people, in our timeless city, not in this pool of tainted souls. For she's talking to her cats, good hunters, we all feast well. The journey is long and difficult, and I am beginning to tire. I cannot recall the last time I ate or slept. I never sleep, it seems. The well of light makes it unnecessary." And just a little beginning there as Salimba lays her head down to rest. Now, she is immortal and she doesn't really sleep. So when she does, it's the sleep of centuries, as we find out on the next page. It says, "Salimba slumbers a long, dreamless sleep that reaches out and touches all of nature around her, so that it too falls quiet." And Salimba, as she's falling asleep, says, "But I'm so far from the well, so far, so long," and she drifts off. It says, "Salimba slumbers in the deep sleep for centuries, or a single night. Salimba cannot tell. Each time she wakes, the world begins all over again. Only instinct brings her home at last." And it says, and she's talking to herself now as she says home at last. It says, "Things seem different. I know I've been gone some time. I remember something started here, something called Naomi, some dark liquid, cats and dogs. Oh, it's all such a jumble. I'd rather forget it. Too long ago. Memories fade like night, like pleasure, like reflections." And she dives into a pool, and her two cats are outside the pool, and you see two darts rushing in to trank them. And our story has got a fast beginning. And yes, I will be showing you the pages on the side, but like I like to do, and I tell you every week, I'm going to hold the book up as well. So Salimba is in the water, and she goes, "I shouldn't have fallen asleep. I should never fall asleep. Every time I do, I get this nagging at the back of my head. I went somewhere, didn't I? It doesn't matter. I go on. The well of light makes Salimba eternal." And as she comes up, there's a group of natives looking at her, and they have spears and knives and weapons. And they start hurling the spears at Salimba, and she says, "Eternal indeed. Is the jungle eternal? The city that once gleamed at the center of an epoch long forgotten? How about life itself? Is that eternal? Of course not. Only change spans eternity, and Salimba has come to discover everything changed. Her city, her people, her very life changed into a worm boy heaven." And thus we get the title of our story, Worm Boy Heaven. And you can see Salimba is in peril. Lots of spears and stuff coming at her. Will they kill her? No, but they'll probably cause her a lot of pain, right? Can she die? That is the question. And one guy's saying, "Bah, you're all blind," and he chucks his spear in. And then you have this looks like a priest guy. He's got a big goat skull on his head, And he's got this staff, and it has some kind of worm thing at the end. It says, but I can see, Aura shows me, the woman must die. Die. Aura demands this. Aura, master of the well, he who tunnels, the fireworm, the worm of heaven. Use your immortal host to work you well. And use me, he's saying. Such is Aura's power. Our enemies boil, our city is saved from the intruder, and Aura choose me. And as he's chanting this, he uses the staff, which catches on fire, and it boils the water. And you see all the fish and everything else that was in the water rise up to the top. And then our next panel on the next page shows Selimba above it all looking down. She goes, these cannot be my people, yet this is my city, my jungle. And no matter what strangeness infests them, they must answer to Selimba. And she swings down and kicks one of the intruders in the back of the head and knocks him down. And the priest is like, no, it cannot be. And one of the other natives is saying, hey, Selimba. So we are in full action right now. Selimba barely survived the boiling of the water. She got out in time, but everything else in that water died. The high priest is after her. He's got his worm god with him. And as we turn the page, she says, but first, and the priest is yelling at her, no, you cowards, this is not Selimba. And she's like, I must replenish myself. And he is behind her screaming, Selimba is dead. 200 years, the legend is false. Only Aura commands the well. Kill this imposter. Kill. So now we find out that Selimba has slept for 2 centuries when she lay down with the body of Naomi and awoke in a different time, in a different place. Everything changed around her. And she's right now heading towards the well of light. And she's like, I must drink deep. And the priest is like, she knows. And one of the charges with him says, it is Selimba. She has returned. We're doomed. And the priest is like, Aura shall deal with her. The worm of heaven shall never abandon his mortal host. Wait here, Aura commands it. And we go back to Selimba. She's like, must drink deep from the well of light. The well. And the well is kind of looking a bit different to her. So she's not sure what to do. Everything has got this worm design to it. And the priest shows up. He goes, the well belongs to Aura, the worm of heaven. He who tunnels. If you are truly Selimba, returned after 2 centuries, and you have come back to die. And he's got a staff out, and Selimba draws a sword. He's like, Aura, why don't you? And she goes, little man, your worm cult is finished. I'm taking back the well, my city, my jungle, my people. And the priest is like, Aura, no, please. And as he's stumbling through his words, you can see that the worm god is departing him. And kind of like a chest burster scene there, right? Where you see it coming out of his robes through his chest. And the worm god is heading towards Selena. And the priest is like, please don't leave me. And the worm god's like, ooh, but I like her better. I've been waiting for Selena to come back ever since we found the well. And that tells you that the worm god found the well. He is not of the well. The well does not belong to him. It is Selimba's well. And the priest is writhing on the ground in agony, trying to hold the worm back from leaving him. And the worm god is like, she is the woman promised me, the one I will serve and please and commit upon her all the wonderful trials of pain and pleasure. And it's making its way toward her. And as it gets towards her, it jumps under her dress and goes up and over her body. She goes, let me please you, Selimba. Let me show you what we do. And the words are kind of staccato. And she's like, down in worm, and the thing finally finishes, down in worm boy heaven. And she's struggling with it around her neck. So, and then we get the thing of her falling. And then we are on to the next little chapter, part 2 of this. And it's her fighting the worm, and all the worm god, and all these other worms have come out. It says, ooh, Selimba, you're so limber. And it's fighting her. She's struggling. And she's finally got the worm god out of her dress and from being coiled around her body. And she's just fighting to survive at this point. Trying to get to the well. She's yet to drink from the well. And it says, no one ever shook me off before. You are a goddess, aren't you? And Selimba replies, I don't know. I just know you better stop right there. And the worm god says, will you hit me with that tool? Would it please you? And she slices him with the sword. He's like, please, Just let us please you. And she says, uh-oh, a mistake. Because as she slices it, the worm just takes on two different aspects. The other part that's half just becomes another living worm. And it says, meanwhile, far above, he had the priest again. Aura, please come back to me. I can't stand it. I miss you. And back at the pool, it says, while at the pool, Jah and Fur revive and follow ascent. So now her cats are awake and they're on their way to Selimba. They got to try to save her. And the priest, we go back to him, and the next panel is like, miss you. And the cats are coming through to them. And that's when the priest jumps. He goes, we'll show you all about yourself. Please, Selimba, just let us. And the worms are talking as the priest jumps. And he lands among them on the ground and just thumps. And the worms are still just ignoring him. And they're like, oh, well. And they don't care that this priest that they were inhabiting has fallen. It goes, time for you to join your women. Time to please you forever. And Slim says, why do all you perverts keep hassling me? Ouch. She says as it spits at her. And she slices at it once again. And it's just like Paul Chadwick did great because the worm, it looks youngish, it looks creepy, and it's disturbing enough looking, right? It's a very simple design, yet effective. So our next panel is of Selimba. She's laying down on her back, and she's saying, ouch, and the worm is saying, it only hurts for a few seconds, then you'll know how lucky you are. To be a worthy host for Aura, the worm of heaven, the worm of hell, me. We'll share everything in eternity together in pleasure and pain. He goes, all you humans need a worm boy to take care of you. And she's like, wait. He's like, what? And she says, don't you want to please me? He goes, but of course, we all do. And he's talking about all the worms. It's kind of like a hive mind. And she's like, I like my worm boys clean. You all smell like rotten worms. The river, I want everyone to bathe in it. You won't please me unless you're all immaculate. And the one head worm, as the other worms are jumping in the river, says, you're playing tricks, Selim, but I don't blame you, though. It's a nice try. And all the worms below him are like, clean, clean, and they're all jumping in this water. Let's all get clean to please the jungle goddess. And the worm sticks out his tongue, and it's kind of like an octopus tongue, right? It's got all these little suction things on it. It's like, my brothers will rise up soon enough, and by then it'll be too late. And then he pierces her flesh, her chest, and he's going in to make her his human host. But something unexpected happens, and Selim's kind of like blasted, and she instantly dies and is reduced to a skeleton. And the worm boy is like, she's dead. That wasn't supposed to happen. I guess she wasn't really human. She really wasn't human. And you see her spirit rising up. So at this part of the tale, you're like, oh man, Selimba is done, right? This god piercer, thinking she was human, wanted her to be his host, and it basically struck her instantly dead and fleshless. But on the next page, we see her spirit still rising. It says she could feel it all coming back to her, memories flooding in like the water from a broken dike, history welling up from the dim past to break clear and sudden in her mind. She was Selimba. She is Selimba. She always will be Selimba. Nature's mate, the queen of immortality. And now she remembers everything. And you're getting pictures of her past and her present, of her becoming the saber-toothed tiger. And it says, her city, her jungle, 10,000 generations of friends and the loss of them all. 1,000 deaths and always one more. And then rebirth. And you see Selimba crawling out as a baby. And before her crawl is finished, she is a woman once again. And she stands and says, time to begin again. Time to rebuild my heritage. And she jumps into action after donning something quick to cover herself. And she goes, this time I'll never forget. And the worm god's there is like, ooh, you've come back to me. And she says, who I am. I'll never forget who I am. And she goes to her skeleton that was just there. And she breaks off the jaw of her own skeleton. And she fastens it around her neck like a necklace. And in this act, this grand explosion happens. And you see all the worms in the worm god just completely desiccated by the blast of Selimba's rebirth. And she's holding her hands out, and everything is cleansing around her. And when everything clears, it's just her and her cats, and she says, it's over. And over and over and over, forever beginning anew. And thus our story ends. And so it's a quicker story, a fun story. But in this story, we get to learn a little bit more about the character Saleemba, about her immortality, about her eternity. And that when she does sleep, it's the sleep of centuries. And when she wakens, everything she knew is gone. And she had to die to remember who she was and remember herself, all her generations, all her people, and that she is eternal, and that she is the supreme power where she presides. And just a fun little story. I really wish that Steve Perry had survived and lived longer to write more Saleemba. It's a fun character. It's a great character. I really enjoyed these stories. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. But are they fun? Yes. And do they tell something different than the norm? Yes, they do, and that's what I appreciate about them. And they're not preachy. They're just fun. They don't hit you over the head with anything. It just tells a story of this character that you connect with. She cares about things, but also with her immortality, she finds herself having difficulty coping with losing track of caring here and there. And the sense of immortality in these stories really permeates quite well. And it's just kind of there as subtext in the background. But you get that feeling through the character of Saleemba. Through all these stories, she's trying to connect to who she is. And it doesn't happen until this final issue and her death and her rebirth that she finally remembers all her centuries of life, all her eons of living, all her past generations of people she's presided over, and all the cities she's ruled in the same place and the different iterations that they've become. So it's a fast wrap up, but it's a fun wrap up, and it had a disturbing character villain in the Worm God, and which made it a little bit more fun, a little bit more pervasive for sure, but still a good tale. And thus ends our Saleemba trilogy. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And until next time, keep it casual. Attention all, use channel sponsor Rogue Trader at theroguetraderutah.com and my code KEEPITCASUAL for 10% off your comic cleaning and pressing needs. Remember, when submitting your books to be graded, use a trusted professional.